Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, the show where you get the inside access to the best minds in the game. Each week, Chris has the privilege of chatting with top instructors, legendary players, course architects, and industry insiders. If you're looking to improve your game, gain a new perspective, or just hear some incredible golf stories, you are indeed in the right place.
You see, Chris, let me tell you something. I haven't spoken to a press man in my life that is knowledgeable, seriously, as you are. Never.
You do such a great job. It kind of makes me feel good all of a sudden.
You do so much for the game. You're so kind to all of us that are out there in the game. You know, we need more people like you in the game of golf.
Thank you for pressing play. Now, grab your clubs, step up to the tee, and let's get started. This is Next on the Tee.
Hi, folks, and welcome into this episode of Next on the Tee, where golf legends live and your game gets better. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro, and thank you so much for pressing play and for spending part of your day with my guests and I. I've got three tremendous ones in store for you this time around, two longtime friends, and one making his Next on the Tee debut. First up is going to be 2019 Champions Tour Player of the Year, Scott McCarron. As you guys all know, Scott has been a wonderful friend of this show. He's been on many times. I regard him as one of the smartest and most savvy guys that I know, especially when it comes to business and how things should be run. As I've said many times, I'd vote for Scott to be in government. If I had a vote, and I really should, who is the commissioner of the PGA Tour? Who should that guy be? He'd certainly get my vote. Heck, I'd work on his campaign to do that if it was possible. But this time around, he joins me as he's in the midst of the toughest fight of his life. He recently discovered that he has cancer. He felt some discomfort in his throat, which quickly became a struggle to swallow and breathe. You'll hear him explain the type of cancer that he has, exactly how he discovered it, and the treatment that he's going through. The doctors believe they caught it early, thank God, stage 1 or stage 2. Though for a minute, and you'll hear this story, it sounded really dire when he got his test results in his MyChart, and he and his wife Jenny looking at those results, reading through them when they were in the grocery store, God forbid, when you get that sort of thing. But when you're on pins and needles and you can't wait to see what's happening, you're so nervous, you're so afraid. As you can imagine, put yourself in Scott's position. You found out that you've got a malignant tumor. Now they're trying to figure out, how far advanced is it? And you're waiting every moment for that result, for those test results to drop into MyChart. Then you get it, and some things sound really shady. You'll hear about how terrified he and Jenny were until she put some things into ChatGPT and kind of diffused the situation. But as you can imagine, when you're reading those results, my goodness, how awful and terrifying that must be, and how it must have felt for he and Jenny when they got it. So we'll hear all of those stories and a whole lot more. Please keep Scott in your prayers. Reach out to him over social media. Let him know that he's in your prayers and that you're sending him positive vibes. He'll join me here in just a few minutes. Then when Scott and I were talking about having him back on the show, he said to me, you should have my buddy Brandt Jobe on that night as well. And I was excited to do that because Brandt is somebody that I've wanted to have on this show for years. Scott and Brandt were college teammates at UCLA. They won a national championship together in 1988. They were roommates. They were fraternity brothers. They've remained the best of friends ever since. You'll hear all about that, plus the shock it was for Brandt when Scott let him know about his diagnosis. Then we switched to happier stories, like the time that Brandt beat Scott by a stroke to win the Principal Charity Classic out on the Champions Tour. Then Scott getting his revenge a few weeks later when he edged Brandt by a stroke to win the Senior Players Championship. Brandt is unfortunately no stranger to injuries. You'll hear about the things that he's had to overcome. We also get into the tight-knit group that the UCLA golf alumni are, plus Brandt winning the Order of Merit out on the Canadian Tour, his son Jackson Jobe coming back from Tommy John surgery to pitch for the Detroit Tigers this year, and a whole lot more. It is a really fun segment. They are such great guys. I know you're really going to love their story. Then I round out the episode with a return visit from Clark Dennis. Clark is such an underrated player. Looking back to the 1994 U.S. Open at Oakmont, Clark was one of just 8 players to finish that tournament under par. If a couple of bounces and a couple of putts go his way, he probably wins that week. He plays a lot now over on the European Legends Tour. That tour doesn't get enough coverage or attention, not as much as it deserves. Clark won back-to-back Italian Opens in 2017 and 18, won a tournament in 2024, having a lot of success, like I say, over there, plus still playing here, sometimes out on the Champions Tour. So we'll get into all of those things and the thrill it was when he recently won a golf tournament with his son on the bag, every father's dream. So like I say, Clark's fantastic. He joins me about 45 minutes from now. So folks, I've got a great show with three great guys coming your way. Thank you again, as always, for being here and taking the journey with me. One last thing before we get started. If you would please do me a huge favor, wherever you're listening to this show right now, if you would take just a couple of seconds and subscribing to it. It makes a huge difference if you happen to be listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify or Good Pods or wherever it might be, right? The algorithms are everything. So if you would do me a favor, subscribe. It goes a long way towards getting Next on the Tee in front of more great golf enthusiasts just like you. Okay, you know I like to get things started shouting out the wonderful people that help to sponsor this show, starting with my great friends over at the Trib. TribLive.com is the leading news website in Western Pennsylvania, with news around the clock, Pittsburgh pro sports coverage, a high school sports network, and a podcast network, which is where you can find Next on the Tee. Bookmark TribLive.com or download the Trib Live app for free and stay up to date with the latest news from Western Pennsylvania and beyond. I also want to talk about our friends over at the Pittsburgh Brewing Company and Iron City Beer, a brand that I have loved my whole life and started drinking when I was 21 years old, of course. Whether you're a hacker or a scratcher, the secret to a successful day on the links is knowing when it's time to grab an iron, even if that means keeping it in the bag till the 19th hole. If it's been a while since you've reached for Pittsburgh staple beer, it's time to revisit Iron City. Thanks to their incredible new facility in Creighton, the best-tasting Iron City beer ever made is now available at a course near you. Iron City pairs well with any lie and sky and serves as a friendly reminder that there's always next round. Check out all of their wonderful beers and their gift shop by going online to pittsburghbrewing.com. In golf, fast isn't a nice-to-have, fast is a necessity, and speed off the tee is where it all starts. That was precisely the thinking behind the all-new QI4D family of drivers from TaylorMade, our fastest, most fittable drivers. Built to meet the demands of the world's best players like Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Nelly Korda, and the rest of Team TaylorMade. The QI4D lineup was engineered to unlock the four dimensions of speed, starting with a multi-material driver head with enhanced aerodynamic shaping, combined with a faster face and our revolutionary React shaft system. The TaylorMade QI4D drivers are ready to extract every bit of speed from every golfer's unique swing profile. Our industry-leading adjustability and fitting unlocks it all. Watch the full story of QI4D, our quest to build the fastest, most fittable drivers, and unlock your newfound speed at TaylorMadeGolf.com/findingfast. Now back and next on the tee with me is 2019 Champions Tour Player of the Year, Scott McCarron. As you guys know by now, Scott is from Sacramento, California, played his college golf at UCLA. He helped them win the 1988 National Championship, alongside one of the other guests that's going to be joining us a little bit later on, Brandt Jobe. Scott won 3 times on the regular tour, 11 more times so far out on the Champions Tour. In 2019, Scott won the Charles Schwab Cup plus the Jack Nicklaus Trophy for being the Champions Tour Player of the Year. He added the Arnold Palmer Award for being the top player on the money list. I regard Scott as one of the smartest and most strategic guys out on tour, whether it's the PGA Tour or the Champions Tour. Certainly from a business standpoint, a guy who I have immense amount of respect for, and if I had a vote, I would vote for him to be the PGA Tour commissioner because he's just that good. And it is always a privilege to be able to spend some more time with him here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Scott, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on.
So, Scott, we've got some pretty heady stuff to talk about this time around because Life and Health recently hit you with a pretty big body shot. For our listeners who may not be aware yet, talk about what's going on with you off the course.
Sure. I got diagnosed with diffuse large B-cell lymphoma about maybe 2 months ago now. right after I played in Boca at the James Hardy Classic. I had a little scratchy throat. Looked in my throat with a little flashlight and noticed there was a little white spot about the size of an eraser on my tonsil. And so I went to my doctor the next day. She did not like the way it looked, and she sent me to a ENT, Dr. Barnes. He did a biopsy, and I left to go play Tucson. My wife caddied for me in Tucson. We had a nice tournament, finished 15th, and because my normal caddy, Ryan Rue, had to take it off. And had a nice tournament. Drove to the Hogue Classic, one of my favorite tournaments on our tour at Newport Beach, California. I have a lot of friends and family that come out and watch me play. And on Monday morning, the Dr. Barnes called me and told me I had cancer. So complete shock. Very, very fortunate. He wasn't quite sure exactly what kind at that time, but then he called me back Tuesday morning and said, "You need to get home now." So I got home now, worked with an oncologist, Dr. Ariel, out of Novant Health, and started doing PET scans and blood work and all kinds of doctor's appointments over the next couple of weeks, and found out that it was diffused large B-cell lymphoma. I caught it very early, a little bit in the lymph nodes, but they said stage 2 originally. I was just at MD Anderson, and they think it might be just stage 1 because it could be just draining a little bit in that lymph node the way the PET scan showed. So again, very, very early. And one of the most important things I can convey to your listeners is early detection. You feel something's off, go see your doctor. Because if I would have waited 4 to 6 months, it would not have been a good outcome for me. But in those 2 to 3 weeks that I did wait before we started the chemo, that little small white spot that was the size of an eraser grew very, very large. I would say almost golf ball size in my tonsil area, kind of covering up my esophagus. Very, very sore, hard to swallow, hard to breathe. And it was getting bad. So I was always at that point very concerned, how are they going to take this out? But doctors weren't concerned at all. And as soon as I started chemo, the next day it was down 50%. And by the second day, it was completely gone. So
wow,
that's one thing that's good about fast acting cancers. One, they are fast acting, but they also respond really well to treatment. And so I have a very good prognosis that I've been guaranteed we're going to cure it. I'm not going to have to deal with it. And if I can go 2 years after, this will never come back. So I'm very happy about that. During this, I've also been consulting with the doctors at MD Anderson, which has been tremendous. They are the leaders in all cancers and mainly lymphoma. Stuart and Lisa Sink, which Lisa is having to go back, every 3 weeks to get treatments, finally got okayed last week that she doesn't have to go back anymore. But they hooked me up with a great doctor who used to be at MD Anderson, Tom Batcholtz, who's now at Scripps, and he got me in with the MD Anderson people. I met with them on Monday after the tournament in Houston, just yesterday, actually. Dr. Stroudy and Dr. DeBaja, and great oncologist and great radiation oncologist, Dr. DeBaja. She's, as they say down there, she's like the Beyonce of radiation oncologist. And she was amazing. She explained so much to me why she would rather do 3 chemo treatments and then do radiation as opposed to doing 4 chemo treatments. And she was just an absolute superstar. So she's hooking me up with Duke Hospital up here in North Carolina. So I'm going to do, after my 3rd treatment, I'll do a PET scan to see how we're doing. And if everything's going pretty good, I'll do radiation up at Duke. And it'll be 2 weeks of radiation, 5 days on, 2 days off, then 5 more days. So I'll be driving back and forth. It's about a 2-hour drive to Duke to do about 10 minutes of radiation and then drive home for 2 weeks straight. But wow. We might try to make it fun. My wife and I are talking about going up there and staying and maybe playing some golf. Brandt Jobe, who lives by me now, is going to join us later. We're talking about he might come up with me for a day or two. We might go play a couple golf courses up there. We play a tournament at the end of the year, the SAS at Prestonwood. So we're trying to make cancer fun somehow, and try to have some fun while we're doing that, and make these little mini vacations while I'm getting treatment.
So, Scott, I have to imagine taking all of that in, but when the doctors call you with the news, it's kind of human nature, right? We go through the why me, how did I get this, and all of that. You don't ever come across to me as a guy that spends much time on that sort of thing, but it is our human nature to figure out, like, how did I get this? Why did this happen? Did you ever find out any answer? Did they ever give you any thought about how this came about?
Oh yeah, they've definitely given me some thought, and it's probably from pesticides and on the golf course, Roundup, those type of things.
Really?
Yeah, that's where lymphoma starts. So me being on the golf course, 5 to 8 hours a day for 57 years straight, I wouldn't be surprised, whether you put a tee in your mouth or, your glove, your ball, whatever you touch, it's on your body, on your hands. That's a very good way to get this. So that's probably how I got it. But, well, I don't know if we'll really know for sure, but that's definitely in there.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And you're one of the most fit guys. The guys are in the greatest shape. Every year I see you out there on the PGA Tour Champions. You're just in phenomenal shape. Have been, I'm assuming your whole life. I remember you back on the PGA Tour, also in tremendous shape. So when you think about how all of this stuff happens, and again, lucky you caught it early, stage 2, stage 1, whatever it is. But how much does your just normal physical fitness also help you in battling this disease? Because radiation and chemo is no joke.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I've got a very good percentage for treatment and cure rate, because even though I am 60, I'm still kind of young on that scale. But I'm in good shape. And so that's going to help quite a bit. They kind of say about 90% curable and 10% it can be fatal. So I have a lot going on my side in that I'm only maybe stage 1, stage 2, in fit, good health, active, fairly young. And so I think, I'm going to be in that 90% because of that. A lot of the people that don't make it maybe weren't, quite in the best shape, or they were farther along in the stage 3 and stage 4.
I have to imagine the time between going for the PET scan until the time when the results came back had to be some of the most stressful in your life. How'd you deal with that?
It was very stressful because at that time you don't know if it's, spread to all your lymph nodes, spread around your body. You just don't know. And it's very, very scary. And so after I did the PET scan, the night before the PET scan, I did not sleep at all, because that's where you go and you find out if it's spread everywhere. And if it had spread everywhere, that would have been really bad news. So we did the PET scan, came back. The nurse said, sometimes take a couple hours, a couple days to get your scans back. And so my wife and I drove back from downtown Charlotte, went shopping in our little Lowe's grocery store, and all of a sudden, boom, the results were in. As I'm reading the results, it said pretty much what we thought in that one area, in the neck, throat area on the right-hand side, possible lymph nodes. But then it said like prolific activity in abdomen, in your gut, in your thigh. And at that moment, my heart just dropped. And I thought, boy, this thing spread all throughout my body because it was everywhere. And we were, basically crying in the produce section of Lowe's, thinking that this is not good. And so I told my wife, I said, listen, there's no way. I feel good. There's no way that this is spread everywhere. I said, she loves ChatGPT. So I said, put this in ChatGPT, find out what it means. So she did. And it came back, basically said, well, it just means normal activity. So it's like, well, why don't they just say normal?
Right.
Oh my God. And it was pretty amazing. From the readout of the PET scan, the ChatGPT basically nailed on the head, said, hey, you're going to have to do 3 chemo, possible radiation, very curable. It was pretty amazing how good that was. I know some of these things you can get really off the deep end, but I have to admit, ChatGPT was pretty much right on for everything that was going to happen to me.
Well, that's good news, because ChatGPT is my wife's best friend too.
Yeah,
so.
she loves it.
Yeah. Scott, in all of our lives, we see things like this happen in the lives of people that we care about. Like when I heard your news, or when Tim Simpson told me about the battle that he is currently going through, even closer to home. I've watched my brother-in-law go through it, and it kind of puts life in perspective. It certainly gives a jolt to your priorities as well. It certainly makes bogeying a hole or having a bad round or a bad tournament seem minuscule in the grand scheme of things. How are you processing all of this while still going out and playing on the Champions Tour? Has it made you kind of reprioritize or change the way you think about things a little bit?
Well, certainly over the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks since I got diagnosed, I'm certainly testing that theory of playing bad. and no, I'm still pissed off. So it didn't really help. But I have to admit, I did go and play. I went and played the PGA, and I played Atlanta, and I played Alabama, and I played Houston. I played 4 weeks in a row after diagnosis, and 3 weeks of it right after the chemo. Probably shouldn't have done it. I was a little tired. I didn't quite feel 100%, not quite there. But it was a great distraction, Chris. I mean, I'd rather have done that than just sit at home kind of thinking about all this all the time. Because as soon as I got at the golf course, it was back to my normal routine, back to my workouts, back to practicing, back to figuring out my swing, back to my mental stuff. And when I got inside the ropes, I wasn't thinking about anything but golf. And that was actually kind of nice. So it was a nice break for me to get out there on the golf course and not think about this diagnosis and what I got ahead of me. Even though I didn't play very well, and I would have saved a lot of money if I would have just stayed home. But being out there with all the Champions Tour players who have really become not only friends but family over the last 30 years. I mean, all the people that are supporting myself, that going through this battle, and I feel like I'm not doing it alone, which has been nice. I mean, so many people coming up to me, sending me texts, wanting to know how I'm doing. I must have got 20 different guys today texting, wanting to know how my chemo went today and those type of things. So it really has been nice in that. But going forward, I'm going to take some time off now. I'm not going to go to Morocco, and with the radiation treatment, I'm going to have to kind of pick and choose what I'm going to do. So I'm still planning on playing the AmFam with Brandt. So I'm going to do another chemo treatment on Monday of that week. And I'll fly up there Tuesday, play a practice round with Brandt, where it's a team competition at the AmFam. And then hopefully play Des Moines. And then I probably won't play for a little bit, probably skip some tournaments. I won't be able to qualify for the Senior Open now because I'll have chemo on that day. I might have to take off one of my favorite tournaments, Dick's, and I probably won't go to the British or Portugal now. Just I need to get healthy, and there's plenty of golf left on the back end for me to play, and so that's probably what's going to happen. So, but we'll see how we feel and see how we're doing after all these treatments.
So, like you've mentioned, Scott, you're obviously not going through this alone. In addition to the golf community that you mentioned, all the players and people that are fans of yours like me that are praying for you and sending you positive vibes. Your wife, Jenny, who recently you guys celebrated your 10th wedding anniversary. She's obviously right there with you. Talk about the role that Jenny's playing in your life.
Oh my God. She has been my absolute rock through this whole thing. She is constantly looking up things to eat, vitamins to take, what to do, helping with the doctors, helping with, where to go, what to do. Because when you get this diagnosis, you don't know where to start. I mean, that's one of the scariest things. Like, okay, you have cancer. Now what? Where do you go? Who do you call? How do you do this? There's a lot that goes into it. And she has just been right there doing all of that for me, going to every appointment. She's just been amazing. She's been sitting right by my side, holding my hand, crying if I need to cry with me, and let me cry and then get through it. Because being a golfer, we have bad weeks. Man, we just go, okay, well, that's over with. What we learned? Let's go on the next week. And that's kind of how I'm approaching this. It's like, once I got the diagnosis, it's like, okay, all right, how am I going to beat this? Let's put a team together. Who's the best? Where do I go? How am I going to do this? Let's get second opinions. Let's figure this out. And she's just been right there all the way through it. And even today, she did a nice thing, surprised me today. She got Brandt Jobe, who's coming on a little bit with us, to bring me lunch today and surprised me down there at the treatment center when I was getting chemo. So he came down and hung out for 2 hours. We had lunch and told stories, and it just takes your mind off it, makes you laugh and getting through this. So really appreciate it, Brandt, and my wife setting that up.
We know in the game of golf how important that 5-inch space is between our ears and being able to focus well and play well. I mean, you mentioned you haven't played up to what you would hope to play, but you've got all this stuff going on. How do you compartmentalize, even just to get out there and to draw the club back, going through everything that you're now dealing with? How do you compartmentalize, Scott, just to be able to go out there and try to play?
Well, it's a great question, Chris, but I've had to do this my whole career. I mean, you're always, even though you have all kinds of things going on, and everybody looks at us, oh, you're a tour player and a golfer, that's all you think about. No, we have all kinds of stuff, business, things, good and bad, family, good and bad, divorces, marriages, kids graduate. I mean, all this stuff that you have to compartmentalize. And I remember John Cook gave me really good advice a long time. He said, when you're at home, that's the most important thing. Be there with your family, be the rock. But when you're on the golf course and at a tournament, that's the most important thing right then and there. Nothing else. So meaning, don't be on the golf course thinking that you need to be home or thinking about cancer, and don't be at home thinking about the golf course. So really try to use that to heart and compartmentalize. Once I get to the golf course, man, that's the most important thing I'm doing that day, and focus on everything I can to try to play my best. But it's not easy, especially when you get a diagnosis of cancer and you don't really know what's going on, and you're going through chemo and losing your hair and all the fun stuff that goes with chemo, bone pain and just fatigue, all the little things that go with it. Not a lot of fun. So I'm trying to do the best I can when I was on the golf course. And I played well a couple days. I was able to kind of play decent. And towards the end of the week, certainly in Alabama and last week, and Bell South, I just kind of got worn out a little bit, a little tired, made some mistakes, and body just didn't quite feel right. But I tried every shot, and it was pretty poor coming in last week. The last 4 or 5 holes, hit 3 balls in the water at Houston. But other than that, I was playing okay. So you move on.
The Color Guard Classic was a couple of months ago, and it focuses on the cancer that my brother-in-law is battling, colorectal cancer. And that tournament helps support cancer survivors. And again, not the same cancer that you have, but next year, does that tournament start to take on a little more meaning for you? And I know what you want to be able to do is show everybody that you can go out and beat cancer and be successful and come back stronger. It sure would be great to see you back in the winner's circle there.
Well, certainly. Kevin Conroy, who was the CEO of Exact Sciences, has become a good friend. He's great friends with Jerry Kelly, who helps put on that tournament as well. Kevin's just stepping down as CEO since they sold Exact Sciences. But I tell you what, every year I'm there, I'm playing for somebody who's still here or somebody who has passed. And having cancer, I don't care what type it is, I certainly see that we're all kind of a brother and sisterhood family of that once you go through being a survivor of cancer. And that definitely will have more meaning for me going back next year to play that tournament and to talk to the survivors and support them as much as I can, and to show them that, not only you can survive, you can thrive. And being diagnosed hopefully is not the end. And a lot of these people are really having a very tough battle. And that's one of the things that I kind of really found out when I got that PET scan back. And for 5 minutes there, I thought I was all over my body. There are people that get that diagnosis and it is all over their body and it is too late. And I just feel so badly for them that they have to go through that just horrible, horrible fight. A lady that I was doing chemo with has been going back to the same treatment for 17 years, getting every week and battling. I mean, you hear these stories, you don't really realize how much of a battle it is. My transportation driver in Houston, he and his daughter were there, and their mom was at MD Anderson and was on her deathbed, and MD Anderson gave her 10 more years. She had to go back and get treatments, and they just couldn't thank MD Anderson enough for giving them 10 more years. So
no doubt,
those type of things certainly have a whole new meaning to me.
And we'll be right back. You guys know what a fan I am of On Point Golf. Folks, get the #1 ball marker in the game of golf. On Point is the only 3-dimensional ball marker with alignment technology and a removable coin. It is approved for use according to the rules of golf as defined by the USGA and the R&A. As we all know, putting is all about line and pace. Mark your ball with On Point, engage with your 3-dimensional ball marker, and have more confidence in your line, execute the putt, and lower your scores. Folks, with the likes of Jim Furyk, PGA professionals and amateurs alike out there using them now, it's the #1 ball marker in golf that actually helps you lower your scores. Go online to onpointgolf.us, read about the science behind it, then put one in your bag and make more putts. I feel like it's the 15th club in my bag. It's helped my game. Why wouldn't you let On Point help yours as well? Again, onpointgolf.us. Check them out and get one in your bag today.
PGA Tour Superstore pros aren't born. They're made. Every January, hundreds of associates talk to the top manufacturers, learn about the latest clubs, test the newest equipment, log thousands of hours of training, and together hit over 100,000 balls, all so they can get you the perfect fit.
Now let's get back to the show. Now I want to bring in the guy that we have been talking about throughout this segment, one of Scott's great friends, one of his fraternity brothers, and his roommate in college at UCLA, a guy who is a two-time winner out on the Champions Tour and is in the Colorado Golf Hall of Fame, and that is Brandt Jobe. Now, there are a couple of fun facts that I want to share about Scott and Brandt because they both finished in the top 10 at the 2016 Senior Open Championship, but they have both won the Principal Charity Classic out on the Champions Tour. Scott won it in 2016 for his first win on the Champions Tour. Brandt won it the following year by a stroke over Scott plus Kevin Sutherland.
I let him win.
But you got your revenge, right? A few weeks later, right? You win the Senior Players Championship by a stroke over Brandt. So
he let me win. That's what friends are for.
Brandt, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So in that, in that time, and back in 2017, when you guys are winning back and forth with one another, after that, who talks the more trash, Scott or you, Brandt?
Well, lately he has been, and I let him. That's what good friends do, right?
There you go. When I looked at that, one of the things that leaped to my mind is, looking back into golf history. I mean, Jack and Arnie talked about how they both lost tournaments because they got focused on beating each other and lost sight of the other guys on the leaderboard. When you guys look at a leaderboard and the other guy is there and close by, how do you deal with it? Does that pop into your mind? Do you start thinking about, hey, my best friend or my buddy here is a stroke behind me? Does that add incentive? Does it distract? What's it like when you see the other guy on the leaderboard?
Well, for me, definitely, I think it's a good thing seeing Brandt there. One, I'm happy. Whether I can't win, I would be just as happy to have. Well, maybe not just as happy, but I would be happy for Brandt doing as well. And that, like in Des Moines, I missed about a 3-footer for birdie, and then he stuck on the last hole and birdied it to beat me by one. And I was very disappointed when I missed that putt because I wanted to have a playoff with him. But I was so happy that he won. And so that it certainly took the sting out of it. But yeah, we had a lot of kind of battles back and forth in tournaments where we both played well. And Brandt seemed to play well just about every week when he was healthy on our tour. And he was, always contending and, 10, 13 top 10s a year. So we were, definitely on the leaderboard quite often, which was a lot of fun. And, he's gone through some injuries over the last couple of years and he's back now playing as good, I think, as he ever has. We just got to get him in tournaments. So that's the biggest thing for him is to get starts now. Because after 2 years away, you kind of get out of sight, out of mind. And we need some of these sponsors to help him out a little bit to get him back in. Because I know he's going to be back in the top 10 players on our tour once he starts playing all the time.
Brandt, what was it like for you seeing Scott chasing you down on the leaderboard?
Yeah, I think it's motivating in a way. I mean, you see him playing well, he's coming up or he's moving ahead of you and whatever it may be week in and week out. And you're like, all right, I got to get my tail in gear and get going, So I don't look at it as a negative. I look at it more as a positive. Okay, he's playing well. There's no reason I can't play well. I mean, we've played so much golf together. So I think it's kind of a motivator and obviously I feel the same way he does. Hey, if I don't win, and I lost the Players Championship by a stroke to him, it's nice that he won. I mean, it doesn't feel the same, but better him than someone else. You know what I mean? So, but and I have heard about that a lot.
I bet you have.
I think it's great for us to both be competitive. I think, in a way, we kind of spur one another on to bring out the best in one another. And that's the positive aspect of it.
Switching gears just a little bit, Brandt, Scott and I were talking about his cancer diagnosis in the first segment. And I saw Scott's post on social media earlier today with you being there for the chemo infusion. He talked about how Jenny surprised him by having you there for lunch. But I have to imagine when you hear Scott gets this diagnosis, it has to hit you like a ton of bricks as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously very unexpected. I remember, a few nights before he was having dinner at my house, he said, "Man, feel like I've got something stuck in my throat." And I'm like, "Well, is it a tonsil stone? Have you checked that out?" And he's like, "No, I've had those. This isn't the same." And, I think he went home and kind of checked it out and said, "Hey, I need to go see a doctor." And so he did. The next day he says, I went and saw a doctor and they're going to take a biopsy. So, you know, obviously you're sitting and waiting to hear what happens. And then obviously I get the phone call from him, "Hey, this isn't good." And yeah, your heart sinks into your stomach. You're like, "Well, what the heck? This doesn't make sense." We're two guys that are 60 years old that still believe we're 25. This can't be happening to us. But I think he's done a great job of being positive. I think he's done a great job of going out and get informed. I mean, Jenny is incredible with that. I mean, you can't believe it. She will go find out everything and how to do it, when to do it, and that helps. I mean, that's staying positive. And it's kind of like I told him. I mean, golf takes kind of second fiddle to this now. Let's focus on getting through this, beating this, and then we'll come back and we'll start beating people in golf. So I think he's done a great job of kind of realizing what's going on. He's used golf as kind of a tool to keep his mind away from what's going on. And there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, it's tough to play your best golf, but if that's what helps him out and that's what makes him feel good, then I'm all for it.
And Brandt, as Scott was mentioning a moment ago, you're no stranger to injuries. You've had hand, wrist, back, shoulder, hip injuries, a number of different surgeries. You even had a freak accident with your hand, with your fingers, that cost you, like you said, a couple of years being able to be out there playing on tour. Talk about coming back from your physical challenge.
Yeah, it was kind of nice because I got on the Champions Tour for about 7.5 years. I felt fantastic playing good golf, competing to win tournaments and top tens and, finishing high on the money. It was nice. It was fun, kind of pain free and no injuries. And I started having problems with my right hip. And, it was the very end of the 2022 season. I got it shot up just to kind of get me through to when I could make a decision on what I wanted to do. And I went up to the Stedman Clinic and had Dr. Philippon do the surgery, and things did not go well. It was supposed to be simple, 2-hour surgery, finish up, go home. 3.5 months later, you should have been swinging the club, and if you wanted to, back on tour in 4 months. That was kind of the plan. That's why I left. I left in the 1st of October in 2022. I had just finished, shot 64 was my last round. I was like, okay, let's get this done. I'm ready to keep going. And it didn't work out that way. I had trouble walking, sleeping, just tons and tons of pain. Tried to play, couldn't walk from the cart to the green. No one was understanding what was going on. Ended up messing up my left hip because of it, which is very common. And went to a different doctor and had surgery. And of course, an hour and a half, I'm out of surgery. I feel good. Everything's great. Well, as I'm trying to rehab my left hip, my right hip is preventing me from doing anything. So I told him this. He says, "Well, let's get an MRI." And he goes, "Boy, I've never seen so much scar tissue. Something's going on in there." He goes, "At least I can go in there and clean it up. So in 2 weeks, when you get off crutches, we'll get after the right hip." So I did that and woke up from that surgery on my right hip. And he's got a big smile on his face. And I said, "What's going on?" He's at the side of my bed. And he says, they had a screw in there that was loose and it was ripping up the back of your hip.
Oh,
And he goes, "That's been
geez.
going on for 2 years." He goes, "No wonder you hurt so bad." So he got that out. And, I was pain free, which was incredible because I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything. And, it was kind of getting to the point where it's getting in your head a little bit because your quality of life was so poor. And, after that, I was pretty excited because I didn't hurt anymore. But the problem was now going back to try and play golf. You spent 2 years not really being able to walk from a cart to a tee box or a cart to a green. And now you're healthy again. But all those bad habits, all the things you've done. And it's taken some time. I tried to play last year and really wasn't fully healthy because when they took all the scar tissue and out, my right hip was really loose. So I'd turn and I couldn't get back to my left side. So Fortunately, Scott introduced me to a teacher, Doug Spencer, and I've put some work in over the winter, and he's kind of helped me out from the biomechanics side, swing side, and getting back to some of the old things I used to do. And played a couple weeks ago, finished 15th, and I felt like that was as poorly as I could have played on the week. So that's kind of a positive sign. And as Scott said, now unfortunately I've been kind of out of pocket here for the last 2.5, 3 years, and when that happens, people forget about you. But I'm trying to rattle that cup a little bit more and get people realizing that I'm out here and starting to play well. So I'm kind of gearing up for a fun stretch of playing Morocco. I get to be Scott's partner up in Madison, and then obviously go back to a place that Scott and I love in Des Moines. So really excited about the next few weeks of golf and tournaments I get to play.
That's outstanding. I look forward to it as well. All right, so I want to switch gears and kind of get away from the health stuff, and let's talk about some happier memories.
Thank you.
So let's go back to your college days at UCLA. You guys had an opportunity to play for one of the all-time great coaches in Eddie Marin. Scott, what was it like for you playing for Coach Marin?
Well, it was not as good for me playing for Coach Marin as it was for Brandt. Coach Marin's loved Brandt. Coach Marin's did not get along with me that well. I think I was a little more of a rebel. Coach Marin's didn't want us to join fraternities. Brandt and I both joined a fraternity. He didn't want us playing intramural sports. I played basketball, flag football, softball. I won tennis, intramural, racquetball. I got my pilot's license, and sometimes I'd call in sick to a tournament or to a practice, and go buzz the team with Brandt. So, I was a little bit of a wild child, and I think I needed a little more direction at that time than Brandt. So, I didn't play as well. Brandt was the stud of our team. I mean, he was the guy that, won tournaments and really won the NCAAs for us back in '88. So Coach Marin's and him got along real well, and Coach Marin's and I got along well after college. I think we both appreciate each other a lot more after that. But he was tough, and he was tough on the young kids. We'd get back from a tournament, not play well, and he would make us run a mile in our suits, and dress shoes, the Marin's mile,
the dedication mile.
Yeah, dedication. So he was tough to play for, but obviously he's a legend in the golf world, and he was very well liked at Bel Air Country Club.
So, Brandt, what was your experience like?
Well, I think Scott kind of hit the nail on the head there. I came obviously from Colorado, not a decorated junior golfer, had a couple good tournaments that kind of got me a spot on the team. And, I knew all these guys from California. They were all so good. I remember going out and meeting Scott in the parking lot of Bel Air when we were 18 years old. We played 9 holes out there before we went to our first tournament. And I think I go out there and I shoot 36, and Scott shoots like 30, 31, I think. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Right. So it was kind of for me as I was like, all right, I got to catch up to these guys. I got to start grinding. And that's kind of how I looked at it was I got to go out and do what I can do and do it the best I can do. And that'll give me an opportunity to play and make the team. And fortunately, that first tournament I played, I think I finished 5th in the tournament, and that got me a spot on the team. And I kind of, rode that out for the next 4 years, and, was fortunate enough to be a part of winning the national championship, on my senior season, which was, a fun way to go out.
Indeed. So when I look back at that national championship, you guys came from 13 strokes back in the final round. Brandt, you shot 69 that day, and you ended up tying for second individually, but you guys make a huge comeback. What was it like? What happened the night before, the morning of? What got you guys going that next day to go on to win and play so well in the final round?
You know what? We were a good team, and we were, a top 5 ranked team pretty much all year. We played terrible at the Pac-10 championship. We were kind of going the wrong direction momentum wise. And it was like, guys, we all knew we were good enough. And we kind of sat there. I remember in our team meeting, just say, hey, everybody go out and do what you do. And let's add them up and let's see where we're at. This is it. We had, I think we had 4 of us that were graduating off out of the 5. The 5th player was a freshman, Tim Cruikshank. So it was like, hey, boys, this is it. It's all or nothing. Just go out and do what you do. And, it was kind of funny. I was in the last group coming up on 18, and Mr. Marin's was out there, in his coat and tie with this, little Ben Hogan hat on and walking. And I thought, oh boy, this is getting real tight. If he's out here on the last hole with me, something's going on. And I swear, if he could have made par for me on the last hole, he would have. And fortunately, I did. And as soon as I made about a 4 or 5 footer on the last hole, everybody went crazy. And I didn't know how close it was. I didn't even know that putt was to win. And so it was pretty neat. But Mr. Marins was that's probably the most excited I've ever seen him. And he was walking the 18th hole. He wouldn't get 6 inches away from me. He was just trying to drag me home, and he did. So, quite a memory and a lot of fun. And one of those times you'll never forget in life.
Brandt, you say you weren't a celebrated junior player, but going back to 1983 in the CGA Junior Stroke Play Tournament at Applewood Golf Course in Golden, Colorado, you shoot 63 in one of the rounds and won by a bunch.
Wait, how do you know that, Chris? How do you know that?
That's unbelievably impressive that you could find that, Chris. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah?
That event is really what allowed me to get a spot on the team at UCLA. And of course, coming from Colorado, everybody told me you're crazy. You can't play golf in California. Those guys are too good. And but it gave me an opportunity. And, that's what Scott and I always, we have an opportunity week in and week out to go play. And I was fortunate that I was able to take advantage of it.
So let's talk about Q School. Both of you guys graduated from Q School. Brandt, you did it in 1990. Scott, you did it in 94. Brandt, in 90, there were some other great friends of this show in the tournament near the top of that leaderboard. John Inman is a wonderful friend, as is Scott Gump, Jerry Haas, Clark Dennis, who's going to come on the show here in a few minutes. There's several other guys that have been guests on this show, Barry Cheeseman, Bobby Clampett, Neil Lancaster, all great guests here on Next on the Tee. But there were 182 players in that final stage. 49 got through. You finished tied for 4th. That's a heck of a tournament.
Yeah, it was, with tour school, it's one of those weeks. It's timing. You're working to get everything to come together, and then it's a bit of a marathon. And I think I was lucky, it was in California. And I was playing with a bunch of guys I was very comfortable playing with it. I believe Duffy Waldorf, I played with him on Sunday in that tournament, to finish up. And, obviously something you remember, I was young and I got through it. And, that's more of a survival event than it is something you don't feel good about it until the last putt's hold and you know what's going on. But, a fun way to start, my career by having that opportunity.
Scott, you do it a couple of years later in 94, another great class that year as well. Keith Fergus is a guy that I thought was going to be a superstar out on the PGA Tour. He ended up getting 3 wins. Charlie Reimer, who's a great friend of the show, was in your class, as was Bruce Fleischer, Dudley Hart, Ronnie Black. So many great players were a part of that tournament that year as well. Talk about your experience getting through it.
Yeah, I had to go through all 3 stages that year in 94. The first stage, I made it. I think the first stage, I birdied 3 out of the last 4 holes to make it on the number. The second stage, I 1-putted the last 5 holes in a row to make it on the number. And then Q School was at Greenleaf, which is no longer there anymore in Florida. I think I shot 69 the 4th round to make the cut on the number, and then shot 67 on the weekend to get my card on the number. So it was quite a battle through all 3 stages. And I get asked a lot of the time, what's the best shot you've ever hit on tour? And I'll go right back to the 9th hole at Greenleaf on that final day. I had a 7-iron out of the rough, had to hit about a 20-yard slice to get it on the green, and I needed to make par to make my tour card. And I hit this most beautiful high cut 7-iron, landed about 15 feet. So it meant a lot. I mean, if I don't hit that shot, you and I aren't talking. Brandt and I aren't playing fam, and I haven't won 18 times. It's crazy when you go back to the small little things that can make or break a career, and sometimes it's luck, and sometimes it's manifestation. So I was very, very happy to get through that Q School, and a lot of fun. And Brandt getting through in 90 for the 91 season was amazing, and that motivated me to get back into golf and to watch him play. And he unfortunately was just dumb enough to have me caddy for him in his very first event in Hawaii, was probably not a good thing.
What were we thinking, Chris?
That could be that's a whole nother hour segment, Chris.
That's a whole other segment. Just that week.
Just that week. But it's been a lot of fun watching Brandt's career. He's been one of my motivators. He played great in college, played great over in Japan, won so many events, and then to make it on the PGA Tour. So he's someone I've really looked up to and wanted to be like when he got his tour card before I did. So a great motivator. We're still motivating each other today. 42 years later, we became friends, and Brandt and his beautiful wife Jennifer have moved up to Mooresville, about 3 miles from us on the lake now, and for us to have each other this late in life, to be able to practice and play and motivate each other we still believe we can get better and have maybe 5-10 more years in the Champions Tour. Who knows? But I think having Brandt here is going to make both of us better.
Just a couple more before I let you guys go. And curious how far and how deep the UCLA alumni thing runs, because when you guys both get on tour, you get your tour cards, but there's also the guys that you've mentioned. You mentioned a moment ago, Duffy Waldorf, Brandt, and he's out there. Obviously, Tom Pernice, a teammate, he's out there. Some of the older guys that maybe were a couple of years ahead of you getting out on tour, like Jay Delsing, another wonderful guest on this show, and Corey Pave and Steve Pate. There's a lot of UCLA guys out there for you. Were you able to lean on them?
Yeah, what was great, I actually played a lot of practice rounds with Jay Delsing and Steve Pate. Those were kind of my go-to guys. Ended up meeting Mark Wiebe, who always played with those guys. And those were kind of when I first got out there. Ironically, Steve was the assistant coach his senior year when I was playing at UCLA. So he took us on a couple trips, which that's a whole nother program.
That's a whole nother program.
But Steve was always awesome. And when I got out there, he was like, hey, Brandt, anything, I can do. And that's how I met Mark Wiebe. And obviously Jay Delsing, I got to know him real well through Kevin Leach and the Rolling Hills area in California. And so those two guys were kind of my two guys that kind of I could go to ask questions if I didn't have anyone to play a practice round. And that's huge. That really helps. And of course, Duffy was always there too. But that's big when you got a couple guys you can lean on when you get out there, because no one's really out there making you comfortable. Golf's an individual sport. It's not a team sport. And so to have a couple guys that want to see you do well and want to help you out was very, very nice.
Scott, were you able to lean on those guys as well?
Oh, absolutely. I leaned on Jay Delsing and Steve Pate. We played quite a bit when I came out in 95. Brandt was over in Japan at that time, whipping everybody's butt, making a ton of money. Brad Bell was the guy that Brandt played a lot with as well, that played for.
Yeah, Brad was fun. Brad and I played a ton together when we got out there. He was awesome.
Yeah, so he was kind of my sounding board as well, because we had played the California Golf Tour and the Golden State Tour, traveled around together before I got on tour. So he was a good, once I got my card, sounding board as well. And we definitely used it. Corey Pavin, even, who was always kind of the gruff guy, but once I got on tour, he would kind of help you out any way he can. I mean, Corey Pavin's one of the guys that probably texts me or calls me more than anybody right now going through this cancer diagnosis, because his wife, Lisa, has been battling cancer for the last year, and he knows what it's like. And so he's been reaching out. So I told everybody, I'll try not to let everybody know that you're doing that, because they'll think you're a nice guy now. But,
yeah, don't let anyone know that.
He said,
but
don't.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Brandt, in 1990, you won the Order of Merit out on the Canadian Tour. You won the BC Open that year. You're the leading money winner on that tour. Talk about competing north of the border and having success up there.
Well, back then, there wasn't a Corn Ferry Tour. There wasn't a tour down here in the U.S. to go play where you had a certain number of events. So it was kind of the closest place to go where I could play. I think they had 8 to 10 events scheduled throughout the summer. And so that was kind of my first experience of doing it right before I got my tour card. And I went up there and I had to qualify for the tour and got through that and got out and made my first cut. And then I got lucky enough to win what arguably was probably their biggest event, the BC Open in Vancouver. And I won that tournament, which gave me a big lead on the Order of Merit and kind of brought it home over the next, 8 or 10 weeks. But, little things like that let you know, hey, you can do this. You're good enough. You're playing well. And there was a lot of good players up there too that did go on to play on the tour. So I think those little wins add up, and they create the confidence and the belief that you can go out and do it on a bigger stage like the tour.
Brandt, for those who don't know, your son Jackson pitches for the Detroit Tigers. He had Tommy John surgery last year. I read he was on track to possibly come back this season before September, a little earlier than normal. How's he doing?
Yeah, he's back on the mound. In fact, I talked to him tonight, and he was hitting 97, 98. So I'd say the arm's doing pretty good. He's got about 6 more weeks of the kind of protocol to finish up. He's on the mound. He goes through a certain number of pitches trying to build up to get to that 5 or 6 inning point. But he's got probably about 5 or 6 weeks before his first minor league start. He'll do 3 to 5 minor league starts depending upon how they want it to play out. I'm guessing the end of July, 1st of August is about when he'll be back pitching for the Tigers. And they're going to need it because they've had a lot of injuries this year. So hopefully he can help them on the second half. Bring it home, get them into the playoffs, and then see what happens.
Scott, remind our listeners, how can they stay up to date with you, be there with you, send positive vibes and all that sort of thing? How can we do it and follow you on social media?
Yeah, at Scott McCarron on Twitter and at Scott McCarron Golf on Instagram. I don't do a lot on Instagram yet because I really don't know what I'm doing. But I'm gonna have some time off here in the next 3 weeks to start learning a little bit more. And I do throw a few things out on Twitter every now and then, like the picture today of Brandt there surprising me at the chemo treatment. So that's how you can follow me. And I'll probably start posting a little bit more on my journey here and how I'm going to get back.
I do, Chris. I got to say one thing. We're in there at chemo, and we're sitting down. We start telling stories, and the two of us are laughing. Everybody around us is looking at us going, how are these two guys having fun right now?
Yeah. We're making chemo fun. Yeah, we'll make it.
That's what we do. We try and put a positive spin on everything here.
Brandt, how can we stay up to date with you?
I do Twitter. I'm not good at the other things, and it's at Brandt Jobe. And that was a neat post Scott did today, so it was a lot of fun. And I've gotten to read some of the posts. A lot of well wishes for him, which is really cool.
Yes, it is. Scott, prayers up always, my friend. Sending you positive vibes. You obviously have a wonderful place in my heart for all that you have meant to me in this show over the years. Always in your corner, my friend. So keep it up, keep doing what you're doing, and know that the golf community is all 100% behind you and rooting you on.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it. And believe me, I can feel the love. I can feel the prayers. Keep them coming. We're going to beat this thing.
Absolutely. Brandt, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I hope we get this privilege with you again soon.
Well, thank you, Chris. Enjoyed being on. Always fun to be with Scott. And we have a lot of fun things, good things to look forward to coming up. So that's what we're going to focus on.
Absolutely. Take care, fellas. All the best to you and your families. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Chris.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
That is the great Scott McCarron and Brandt Jobe. What a segment with those guys. And look, and I mean this sincerely, as you guys know. I mean, I've had the privilege of having Scott on the show. I think tonight was the 8th time. He is a guy that is very special to me because of how generous he has been over the years with his time coming on the show and sharing his stories and his insights. And like I mentioned in his intro, he, to me, is one of the smartest guys that I have come across from a business strategy perspective and the way things, I believe, ought to be run on the PGA Tour. Look, if I had a vote, I would have voted him commissioner years and years ago. He's that kind of a sharp guy and just a wonderful human being. And when I found out about the cancer, and it just was a huge body blow to me because Scott is so special to me, means a great deal to me. And you never want to hear about someone that is a friend of yours, someone that means a lot to you, to get this kind of diagnosis, right? It takes a piece of you, right? And I've carried that with me, just like, because I'm hurting for Scott, knowing what he's going through and knowing what the battle is, and goodness knows how he dealt with the few minutes, whether it was 5 minutes or however long it was when he thought it was running through his body. I mean, you can only empathize for what that must have been like and what that must have been like going through his head and how he's dealt with this whole thing. And I'm certainly a little bit relieved to know that it's probably stage 1. He caught it early. Scott is, like we talked about in the first segment, one of the healthiest guys out there. He's in fantastic shape, always takes good care of himself. Jenny is a wonderful lady, and she's, I know, doing absolutely everything possible to keep him healthy and to eat right and to do all the right things and do all the research and that sort of thing. So as a team, I know that they're going to beat this. There's not a doubt in my mind they're going to beat this. And then on top of that, the golf community and all the prayers sent Scott's way, thanking God that he is putting all of the right people in his path and doing all the things to heal him from the inside out. So I know all of that is going to turn out wonderfully because of, like I say, all of the positive vibes coming his way and the great doctors that he's had along the way too. So I know he's going to beat this thing. And for Brandt Jobe to be such a close friend of Scott's, to be willing to come on and share the conversation, is incredibly special. I was, so wonderful when Scott reached out to me and said, "Hey, let's get Brandt on here. Let's share our stories." So to know that Brandt would be willing to do that and then to share his stories, hopefully this is the first of many visits we get to have with Brandt. So prayers up for Scott. Please keep him in your prayers. Please send him the notes. Please follow him online and on social media. Please follow Brandt on social media. Keep sending all of those wonderful tweets out to him. Show him your support. It means a lot to him, just like he just said. We'll obviously stay very, very close to this. Hopefully get Scott back on the show during some of that time off. Coming up next is a guy who's become a wonderful friend over the last few years, a very underrated player, in my opinion, a guy who's actually tearing it up over on the European Legends Tour, and that is Clark Dennis. Before Clark joins me, let me remind you about the great things going on up at Macklemore, because this year, get ready to experience a game like never before at the Keep, the brand new Bill Bergen and Reese Jones co-designed course at Macklemore. With its challenging layout and awe-inspiring views, every round here is an unforgettable adventure. Whether you're taking on the signature holes or just soaking in the scenery, the Keep is where your best golf meets nature's finest backdrop. So grab your clubs and join us up at Macklemore. The Keep is open and it's waiting for you. And folks, if you haven't tried 2 Under yet, you really need to. Why? Well, from the first tee to the clubhouse, 2 Under's Joey Pouch is going to keep you comfortable and locked in all round or all day. Build your own bundle by going online to 2 Under, that's the number 2, UNDR.com, and save up to 20%. All right, now back in next on the tee with me is Clark Dennis. Clark played out on the Korn Ferry Tour, the PGA Tour, the Champions Tour, and the European Legends Tour. He's from Houston, Texas. He was the 1983 Texas State Junior Champion. He played his college golf first at the University of Arkansas and then at SMU. He turned pro in 1986. He won the Nevada State Championship in 1988 and the Texas State Open in 1992. He has 9 professional wins to his credit, including winning the 1993 Bakersfield Open on the Korn Ferry Tour. So far, he has 5 wins over on the European Legends Tour, including winning the Senior Italian Open in back-to-back years of 2017 and 18. He also won the Dutch Masters in 2017 and the John Jacobs Trophy that year for winning the European Senior Tour Order of Merit, and he was also Rookie of the Year that year. His most recent win came at the Costa Navarino Legends Tournament. He won it by 4 strokes over Scott Henn back in 2024. He also, looking back at his PGA Tour career, finished tied for 6th in the 1994 U.S. Open at Oakmont. He is just simply a fantastic guy and a great player on top of all of that. And I couldn't be more thrilled that I have the opportunity to spend some more time with him this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Clark, how are you, my friend?
That's a tough act to follow, those 2 guys, I tell you. I mean, Scott and Brandt are both good guys, friends of mine, and I'm really praying for Scott and his recovery and hope everything goes well for him.
I appreciate that very much, and I know Scott does as well. Clark, I wanted to start out by getting your thoughts on your game right now. I mean, you had a top 10 not that long ago, a couple of weeks back, and then looking back, your last win out on the European Legends Tour wasn't all that long ago. How are you feeling, and how do you feel about your game?
Well, everything's going good. I've spent the last 4 or 5 months really focusing on my health, getting healthier, losing a bit of weight. I had a doctor friend of mine that kind of put me on a program. It's really helped. I've lost about 30 pounds, believe it or not. And
no, you didn't have 30 pounds to lose.
Well, I did, believe me. I'm working with a new instructor. His name's TD North at my club at home in Mira Vista in Fort Worth. And exciting young instructor. And we've worked on some things here in the last couple of months and played in Barbados a few weeks ago and finished 10th, which I thought was a shot 65 the first round. So that was encouraging. I'm 60 years old now. So, the years are flying by. But I still have a little bit of game, so I'm looking forward to the next couple of years.
Yes, you do. Clark, at the time that we're recording this, we're heading into PGA Championship week. I wanted to get your thoughts. Have you ever played Aronimink?
I have not played Aronimink, no, but my son is there caddying this week for Sam Stevens, so I've been getting some updates from him about the course and what it looks like and what he thinks about how it's going to play. And, I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair this week, according to them. The course is pretty short for those guys, and it's going to be a kind of a bomber's paradise, and you got to putt it pretty well. The greens seem to be pretty diabolical, according to Will.
If it's going to be a bomber's paradise, that would seem to favor the guys right there at the top, right? Scotty, Rory, and those kind of guys, Cam, those guys all playing really well. They're probably the three best players right now on tour. Do you look for one of those three guys to win this thing, or do you like someone else?
I think you've got to look at those guys this week because I think it sets up perfectly for them. Especially Rory. I mean, Rory's played so well this year, and when his game is on, he's tough to beat. And you put him on a course like that where he's such a tremendous driver of the golf ball. If he can have short irons in his hands all week, he's going to be tough to beat.
Clark, you were mentioning your son Will a moment ago, and you've got another son, Philip, who has caddied for you. And we recently celebrated the 40th anniversary of the 86 Masters. And one of the many things that made that tournament so special, obviously, Jack winning it at 46, unbelievable. But he got to spend that week with his son Jackie on the bag. And who can forget their embrace at the back of the 18th green when it was over. And you got to have a similar experience at the 2024 Costa Navarino Legends Tournament over in Greece. You won it with 3 consecutive rounds of 66. Your son Philip on the bag for you that week, which is every father's dream to get to win a tournament and have your son on the bag for you. What was that experience in that week like for you?
Yeah, it is. Actually, Will's caddied for me a lot, and Will is a fantastic caddy. I mean, I think he and Sam have done a great job together. They're top 50 in the world now, and I think a lot of that is down to their relationship and how much they get along and how good Will is as a caddy. Funnily enough, I've never won a tournament with Will, but I've won 3 tournaments with Philip, who's not really a golfer. So my 3 wins with Philip were I won Mauritius by 8. I shot 23 under. I won in Germany. I shot 30 on the backside and beat Langer and Olafable to win that tournament by a shot. And then winning in Greece with Philip. And it's been a fantastic experience every time. The one in Germany was especially cool because my wife was there. Philip was there. It was our wedding anniversary on the day that I won. So
wow.
it was just kind of an amazing experience to have that kind of thing come together with Philip on the bag, shoot 63 the last day, win by a shot over 2 absolute legends in Langer and Olafable, and have it to be on our wedding anniversary. So yeah, it's fun. I mean, family is great. I've got 3 great sons, a great wife, been married a long time, 36 years this year, and just really lucky to be able to do that with them.
That's the next tournament coming up on the European Legends Tour back at the Costa Navarino. Talk about that tournament in general, and are you going to be in the field again this year?
I am, yeah. I'm heading over there. It's in a little less than a month. Costa Navarino is an amazing place. I mean, Greece is not really known for golf, but it's got 4 hotels on site, 4 amazing golf courses. Olafable designed the Olympic course, which is where the tournament is, and it's on 2 courses, but that's where the two rounds are on. And it's just an amazing venue. It overlooks the Navarino Bay. You've got all the history there with the Peloponnese and the Battle of Navarino, and everything about it is just really incredible. It's an amazing part of the world that everyone should visit.
And we'll be right back. Golf season is back, and Sunday Swagger just made sure you're going to be ready. Their new spring collection just dropped. They've got 60 bold, performance-driven styles for men, women, and youth. And if all that isn't enough, Well, they just linked up with Pennzoil and Team Penske for a race-inspired collection that brings serious trackside energy to the fairways. With styles for men, women, and youth, you're guaranteed to turn heads and spark conversation when you wear Sunday Swagger. Visit SundaySwagger.com, join the Sunday Club for exclusive drops and member benefits, and folks, Sunday Swagger is going to give you what? Polos with personality. Again, check them out online, SundaySwagger.com. And folks, Squares Golf, best golf shoes on the planet by far. It's not a gimmick, it's not marketing, it's science. Don't take my word for it. Let's hear from six-time major champion Sir Nick Faldo.
You've heard of Squares, and there's a reason why. Because the best swings in golf don't start with your hands. They start from the ground up. Most golf shoes are built for looks, not performance. Squares breaks the mold. Our patented design gives your toes room to engage the ground, creating more stability, balance, and solid contact. Your same swing, now powered from the ground up. Experience the Squares advantage at squares.com. Squares. Performance starts where you stand.
Now back to the show. You mentioned you played really well at the Barbados Legends Tournament. Again, you finished tied for 10th. But that week, when I look back over your scorecard, I mean, my goodness, you made 7 birdies in the first round, and you really tore up the front 9 all 3 days. Talk about, just how you're feeling about where your game is at right now.
Well, my game is good. Like I said, I've been working with TD on some swing changes and just trying to get a little more mobile, trying to get a little bigger turn, and it's paid off. I'm not going to hit it as far as I used to. I'm 60 years old. I have to realize that, but I've worked on a little bit of speed to try to get a little faster. And, here I am in Barbados playing with Henrik Stenson, and I look up. I mean, he's a kind of a mountain of a man, and he's 50 years old, and he still hits it a mile. So that's the competition now, and that's what you have to realize. You have to be a little more wily. You have to be able to putt well and make birdies and just not make the mental mistakes, because I'm going to have to play a little better than those guys are, because the young 50-year-olds coming out, I mean, you look at Scott Hend, you look at some of the other guys that are playing our tour, they grew up in the long hitting era, and so they're used to hitting it long, and they've got their TrackMans out there. They're working on their speed. I mean, it's kind of changed a little bit in the 10 years since I've been a senior. And you see Padraig out there. Padraig's playing the PGA this week. He can compete with the young guys because he's still got the length. And there's a lot of those guys now that actually have the length to play the tour. Now, maybe they're not quite good enough anymore, but they've at least got the length. And so it's a huge advantage when you come out on the Champions Tour or on the Legends Tour to have that length.
Speaking of Jack a moment ago, the U.S. Senior Open is being held at Scioto Country Club this year, the first week of July. That's the course that Jack grew up playing on. Are you going to be in the field? Are you going to try to qualify for the U.S. Senior Open?
I have a qualifier on June the 1st in near Houston, and I plan to be there. That was my very first U.S. Senior Open when I turned 50 at Scioto. I love Scioto. It's a great place. Really enjoyed my first U.S. Senior Open there, and I'm hopefully going to be back there in July.
A few weeks after that is the Senior Open Championship at Glen Eagles over in Scotland. You always seem to play really well at the Senior Open. You did so at Sunningdale. So there's something about, I feel like, the Senior Open that brings out the best in you. Why is that?
I don't know. I just, I never really played a lot in Europe, and UK and Scotland when I was younger. And as I went over there and played on the Legends Tour, I just really kind of fell in love with it. And I really enjoy that style of golf. It suits me well. I did play at Glen Eagles the last time they had the Senior British there, and I actually played pretty well that week as well. So I'm looking forward to playing there this year. It's a good course. The weather can be a challenge, and I just love that golf. Sunningdale last year, a little disappointing finish, but Sunningdale to me is one of the best courses I've ever played. Just an absolutely fantastic venue and fun to play. And it's just a fun type of golf, and I really enjoy it.
As you mentioned, the weather can be tricky over there, which really tests you from a mental perspective. Clark, how do you compartmentalize? How do you not let the bad weather, whether it's raining, you get sideways rain, you get wind, you get all that sort of stuff. How do you, and I know, being from Texas, right? I mean, you're used to playing in the wind and that sort of thing. Did that help you? Does that help you compartmentalize so that it doesn't impact you at all?
I think it does. And you see a lot of British Open champions have been from Texas, and I think that there's a reason for that because there's a lot of wind in Texas, a lot of weather. We grow up kind of in that, and I think in order to play well in that kind of weather, you just have to embrace it. You have to like it. You have to say this is going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my best, and I'm just going to embrace what the weather is. I think the guys that go out with the attitude, "Oh, this is miserable. I hate this. This is no fun." That's when you really start to struggle. You just have to embrace what it is and realize that's the joy of playing over there. That's the fun of playing over there. And it's a little harder when you're doing it in a tournament than if you're just over playing for fun. But it's still, if you can have that attitude that this is why we're here, this is what this golf is, then I think you have a lot better chance of doing well.
When you hear guys complaining like that, I always remember Jack Nicklaus used to talk about how he would love to hear those guys complaining, whether, in a major or wherever, right? Guys that were complaining about the golf course and that sort of thing before the tournament ever started. He used to say you could kind of mark those guys off because they weren't going to be, in it, right? They were already taking themselves out of the golf tournament mentally before it ever started. When you hear guys that might be mumbling about how bad the weather is or whatever the conditions are of the golf course, that sort of thing, does that kind of give you like a little mental edge knowing that, there's probably 3/4 of these guys that are mentally taking themselves out of this tournament before we ever start?
Yeah, I remember Jack saying that, and I thought that was very wise because, if you're complaining, if you think it's bad, I mean, you've got a very low chance of playing well. And so, yeah, you can kind of write those guys off. I mean, I think Brooks Koepka has said the same thing about the majors, that the majors are easier to win because there's a lot of guys in there that are miserable, that complain about the conditions, about the difficulty. And so it whittles the field down to a much smaller amount of people who actually have a chance to win. So I think a good attitude in majors in difficult conditions is very important.
You split time typically between the Champions Tour and the Legends Tour. I certainly miss seeing you this year at the Mitsubishi Electric Classic. How are you planning out the rest of the year? How much are you going to play on the Champions Tour versus the Legends Tour?
Well, I don't have much status on the Champions Tour this year, so I might try a couple of qualifiers later in the year. Kind of depends on the schedule of the Legends Tour. We're very backloaded this year towards the end of the year. So, I might get to play a little bit earlier in the year on the Champions Tour. It always comes down to, Chris, how you play. If I play well and have a couple of good events on the Champions Tour, I'll try to play some more over here. If not, I'll go play the Legends Tour, which I enjoy.
I want to remind people, Clark, about your performance in the 1994 U.S. Open. We've talked a little bit about it before, but it was in my old backyard back home in Pittsburgh at Oakmont. You ended up finished tied for 6th that week. You were one of only 8 players to finish the tournament under par. And as I recall, the heat was off the charts that week in Pittsburgh. You had a very early time in the first round. I believe you got off at 6:40 a.m., so you missed the heat on the first day. You go out and you birdie the first hole, rolling in a 20-footer, and then you're off and running. What do you remember about that week?
Well, I do remember the heat. It was blazing hot that week. It was absolutely just stifling hot. Probably the hottest U.S. Open that I've ever been around or played in or even seen. And I just remember, I had a few weeks before I had gotten off to a really bad start at Muirfield at Jack's tournament. The last round I was playing with Fred Funk, and I started par, double, triple. So I was 5 over after 3 holes. And I just remember something in me snapped, and I was just like, I'm just not gonna worry about this anymore. I'm gonna go at every pin. I'm not gonna play scared anymore. And I actually ended up shooting 69 that day, I think. I made just a slew of birdies coming in. Fred Funk used to talk to me about it for years. He called me comeback. Remember that comeback? And yeah, I remember. So anyway, so that was just a few weeks before the U.S. Open, and that carried over into the U.S. Open because I just played a little more free, and I don't know why. It just kind of something in me snapped when I was 5 over after 3 holes. It just made me mad, and I decided I was not going to do that anymore. I was going to play a little more free, and it carried over into the U.S. Open, and I was hitting the ball really well, which you have to do. I was driving it well. If I had putted any good at all that week, I would have won. I mean, I just wasn't a very good putter at the time, and that's kind of the only reason I didn't win. I probably led the field in greens hit and maybe in fairways hit. I mean, I drove it unbelievably well and was hitting my irons really well that week. So it was a good experience. I loved it. It was, Oakmont is still one of my favorites, and to see Will and Sam make the cut there last year and play and be around the same course that I was, that was fun too.
It was obviously Mr. Palmer's final U.S. Open. Did you get to see him at all? Were you around for his 2 rounds that he played on Thursday and Friday, or his press conference?
Well, funnily enough, when he was walking up 18, I was on, I believe it's 12T, which is right there by 18. And so I got to watch him walk up 18, for the last time in the U.S. Open. We stopped, obviously, the guys I was playing with, we just stopped and watched. So it was just fortuitous that we happened to be on 12T at the time. And so we stopped and watched Mr. Palmer walk up the 18th fairway. The roar that he got was amazing. It was an incredible atmosphere. And yeah, that was pretty special.
Switching gears a little bit, Clark, I'm just curious, what's in your bag nowadays?
I'm a Callaway guy. I'm using last year's driver still. I've got a couple of the new drivers and I like it. But I'm not a big switcher. I don't switch too much. I've got pretty much the same irons I've had for the last 5 years. I'll change putters here and there. If one's not behaving, I'll switch putters. But it's always gonna be an odyssey for the most part. Callaway's been really good to me, and I like their equipment. I think it's really solid through the bag. So and I use a Titleist ball.
What are your thoughts on this whole mini driver craze? Have you looked into any of those?
I've hit a couple of mini drivers, and I've played with some guys that have used them. I think the mini driver is more for the real power guys. I don't need anything mini in my bag. I need it to all go maximum. So I think some of the guys that hit it far and that can have that in their bag, kind of as a strong 3-wood or a T club, I think it works really well for the long hitters. I think it's really a specific club for certain courses. But it seems to be something a lot of guys enjoy hitting. For
people that aren't as familiar with the European Legends Tour, we've been talking about it through this whole segment, but it's not a tour that a lot of people know a lot about. But there are, and you mentioned this a little bit ago, some of the all-time greats are out there playing week in and week out. Talk about the level of competition, the guys that you're competing against during each of those tournaments, and what it's like actually being a part of that tour.
Well, I think it's very underrated for the quality of play out there. I mean, I mentioned Scott Hend a little while ago. You mentioned Scott Hend. He finished 3rd in the senior PGA. He played in Barbados. He had won Barbados the year before. Obviously, Henrik Stenson was there. You got Peter Baker. You got James Kingston. You've got a litany of former Ryder Cup players, major winners like Michael Campbell plays on a regular basis. Ian Woosnam plays. The list of players that play on the tour is quite amazing, and almost a Hall of Fame list almost every week. So yeah, it's very underrated for what it is, because it is a very, very strong tour.
Yeah. So why is that, Clark? I mean, is there a reason? I mean, you would think with all of the legends that play out there, and you mentioned, Jose Maria Olazabal goes out there and plays. Langer every once in a while goes out there and plays. Colin Montgomery still goes out there and plays.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ian Woosnam, but there are some of the all-time great players from the European side that are out there playing in those tournaments. But for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to get the love that I think it deserves.
It doesn't. I think it's pretty well known in Europe, especially in the UK, but it doesn't get enough exposure to me around the world. And a lot of that, Chris, is just, it's not on TV. If there's not a lot of media on it, if there's not eyeballs on it, people are not going to think about it. Yeah. But it is an incredible tour. It's an amazing experience to play with those guys and to get to know some of those guys that I didn't know in my younger career, and get to hang out with Michael Campbell, who's a great guy, and become a really good friend. And, also being around Woozy and Olazabal and those guys, it's really, it's really great. And it's fun for me to be able to get to know those guys and hang around them now later in my career.
Yeah, you mentioned Michael Campbell. That's a guy that, unfortunately, I don't think gets the amount of recognition that he deserves for what a great player he has been throughout the course of his career. I know he went through some some downtimes and some struggles, health-wise, but a guy that went out and won a major. He won the U.S. Open. Talk about Michael and, just your thoughts about Michael and why he doesn't get the amount of love that he deserves.
Well, Michael, he won the U.S. Open. He beat Tiger in the U.S. Open in Pinehurst. I mean, how much better can you get than that? I mean, you just don't get any better than that. He's won a lot of tournaments around the world. He came from nothing in New Zealand. I mean, he came from very poor. He's told me this story, and he's told this story many times about his first golf tee was actually sheep dung that he would build up and hit balls off the sheep dung. And so, to come from that and to become a U.S. Open champion and win the tournaments he won, incredible. And Michael is actually a fantastic guy. He's become a good friend. I love hanging around him. He's been great to the Legends Tour. He plays a lot on the Legends Tour. He does a lot of media for us. And, absolutely does not get what he deserves as far as recognition because he is one of the all-time greats.
Agree with that. Clark, I can't let you go without getting your thoughts on your Texas Rangers. They're a few games under 500 right now as we are recording this, 2.5 games back of the A's. But no one in that division seems like they're likely to run away with things. How do you feel about the Rangers' chances this season?
Well, the division is not very good this year, to say the least. When you you can tell. The pitching has been okay, not as good as I expected. But really, what I expected to be good this year was the offense. And the offense has struggled. Seager hasn't been himself. It's just, you got to put up some offense, and they just haven't done it this year. And it's kind of frustrating as a fan. But the good news is if they can pick it up, if they can do something maybe at the deadline, they are only a couple of games back. So that's a division that is kind of up for grabs. So hopefully they'll get it together. I think they've got one of the best relief pitchers, Jake Latz, talk about somebody who gets no love. I mean, Jake Latz is an unbelievable. If you look at his ERA, it's nearly 0. And so, he's had 4 saves. He just saved the game a couple nights ago. And so, if we can get some performances like that and get a couple of the guys, to get their bats hot, I think there's still a chance for them to win the division.
Clark, how can our listeners stay up to date with you and follow you, seeing what you're doing and stay up to date with all the great play that you have and where you're going to be playing? How can we do it online or on social media?
Well, you can always follow me on C. Dennis Golf on Twitter or X, as you might call it, or Instagram. C. Dennis Golf on Instagram and C. Dennis Golf on X.
Clark, it's always a privilege to get to spend some time with you. You're absolutely one of my favorite people to do so with. I hope I get this privilege. Maybe we can catch up with you a little bit later on in the golf season.
I would love to catch up with you again, Chris. And once again, tell those guys that I'm sorry I had to follow up 2 legends like that.
I'll let them know. Take care, Clark. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
All right. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
See you, Clark.
Bye-bye.
That is Clark Dennis, folks. Just a wonderful guy. I mean, I had the privilege of spending a little extra time with him last year at the Mitsubishi Electric Classic here outside of Atlanta, and just being able to spend some time with him one-on-one was fantastic. He's just a great human being. And on top of that, he's a wonderful player, a guy that, like I say, when you think about the 1994 U.S. Open, you should be thinking about Clark Dennis, a guy that finished tied for 6th. And to his point, if a couple more putts drop and a bounce or 2 goes a different way, at a minimum he's in a playoff, and if not, he might have won it. So that tells you just what a great player he is. And then to go over to the European Legends Tour and perform like he has, several wins the Italian Open in back-to-back years, and you know how hard that is. It's hard, to win a tournament one time, let alone being able to win that tournament 2 times in a row, and to continue to play. And again, the Legends Tour just doesn't get any love, and it's unfortunate. When you look at those tournaments, where they play them, and it's some of the most beautiful golf courses you'll see anywhere on the planet, and then with the legends that, made what the European Tour is, still out there playing there, it's just like having the Champions Tour. And again, the greatest names, like you get Colin Montgomery out there playing, you get Ian Woosnam out there playing, and you could just go on and on, Jose Maria Olazabal, and on you go. I mean, that's a heck of a tour. I mean, I certainly hope over in Europe they're putting that thing on TV, and that you would think we could find some time on the Golf Channel to show these legends out there playing. And look, Clark is out there week in and week out. Again, just had a tied for 10th a couple of weeks ago at Barbados, so that tells you his game is rounding back into shape. So I have every confidence that he's going to continue to be at the top of the leaderboards over there. And like I say, when you marry it with just one, what a wonderful guy is. And how great is that to be able to win a golf tournament with your son on the bag, right? We all remember Jack and Jackie doing that at the 86 Masters. But to be able to do that with your son, that's every father's dream, to be able to live something like that. And I'm so glad that Clark and Philip had that experience. And I'm certainly rooting for his son, Will, out there with Sam. And hopefully they continue to play and perform really well. So that's always, someone that I'm looking for on the leaderboard. So positive vibes to them, positive vibes to Clark, and hopefully we get the opportunity to spend some more time with Clark a little bit later on this golf season. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this episode of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks go out again to Scott McCarron, Brandt Jobe, and Clark Dennis for joining me. Scheduled to join me next time are our resident director of instruction, Tom Patry, will be back. Another one of the all-time great legends in our game, two-time major champion Tony Jacklin, will be here. I'm so excited to catch up with Tony. We'll also get another return visit from another major champion, 2012 Senior Open champion Mark Wiebe will be back. You guys know how great Wiebes is, so it's going to be a great show, folks. You're not going to want to miss that one. I want to thank our friends again over at Trib Live for being such wonderful partners of this show and for hosting it on their site. For the latest news from Western Pennsylvania and beyond, including your favorite sports, go to triblive.com. You can find this show by then clicking on the Sports Section tab, and it's going to be right there for you on the homepage of the Sports Section. Or you can type in podcast.triblive.com. Then you'll see a link for Next on the Tee. Click on that, and many of the most recent episodes from this season available for you right there as well. But as you guys know, you can find this show pretty much anywhere you get your podcast content. We're out there on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and GolfNewsNet.com. But as always, like I say each and every week, the biggest thanks go out to each and every one of you for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts, barring none. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.
Thanks for joining Chris again this week on Next on the Tee. We hope you enjoyed the conversations as much as we did. Please share the show with your golf buddies and be sure to follow it on Trib Live or your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for pressing play and being part of the journey. We'll see you next week, right here, where the best minds in golf share their stories.